State your name for the record.
Maya Kowalski.
And were you here in the courtroom, Maya, when some clips were played from your depositions?
I wasn't in the physical courtroom, but I did hear them, yes.
You did see them. And how many times were you deposed?
I believe 5.
5 times. And did those snippets show the overall view of what your life is like?
Absolutely not.
Well, the jury needs to know.
This is a crucial credibility moment. The jury has only seen carefully selected deposition clips, and now she's pushing back. Hard. In court, context matters. A snippet can tell one story, but the full testimony can tell a very different one. So ask yourself, are we seeing evidence or editing?
So tell them what's going on.
With my health?
With what?
With my health?
Yes.
Yes. For the past couple of years, I haven't been pain-free. That's the reality for most CRPS patients. I go through periods of waxing and waning, so there'll be some periods of time where I'm doing generally better.
Notice how this question isn't just about pain. It's about perception. Chronic illness doesn't always look dramatic, and that's often used against patients in court. If someone only documents your good days, does that erase the suffering on the bad ones?
And then other times where it's pretty severe. Fortunately enough, I haven't been nearly as bad as I was in 2015. However, that doesn't mean I don't suffer.
And I gather you don't pose for many pictures or have many pictures taken of you when you are having one of your relapses.
No, I don't really like to take pictures when I'm in pain.
And did you have a relapse then in November of 2020?
Yes, I did.
And did that put you in the hospital?
Really respectfully, this is not rebuttal, this was
Sustained on that.
And so, if we could, I'd like to go through a couple of questions I think the jury has. Were you moved from your room to a surveillance room, or?
Here's where things get legally interesting. Surveillance, or the lack of it, can make or break institutional accountability. She's testifying that key moments weren't recorded. If true, that creates gaps the defense can't easily explain away. What happened off camera?
Left in your room to be surveyed.
Your Honor, this was also covered.
Overruled, you can answer that.
So I was first put into the emergency room. From the emergency room, I was moved to the PICU. Now, for a couple of days when I was in the PICU, there was no surveillance camera. However, then there was, but only for the 48 hours. But that wasn't really accurate because I was in the PICU for longer, and there's things that happened in there that were not on camera.
Okay. Then I'd like to clear up some questions about your dress during the photographs, if you're up for it. Can we bring up 2604-002? All right. Is that a picture of you?
Yes.
And what do you have on?
In this picture, I'm wearing blue shorts, and not pictured, I was wearing a pink shirt before it was taken off.
All right. And then let's look at the next photo, which is 018. And what is that?
This is the bra I had underneath my pink shirt.
All right. And so now let's look at 004. I'm going to ask you if that was the T-shirt.
Yes, that is the pink shirt I was referencing.
And what do you wear that for?
These are my pajamas, so it's something I would have put on the night before, woken up in, and then got changed into a different outfit. In this case, I was changing into my court outfit.
And just so the jury is aware then, let's pull up, sorry, 022. And are those your feet during this?
Yes.
Is that your dystonia?
Yes.
Then let's turn to 2604-006. All right, now, you're in a different outfit here.
Yes.
What are you in?
I'm in a new bra. This is a white bra. And then I was in pink shorts that I wore underneath the dress that I would be putting on for court.
All right. So how did you get from your pajamas into this?
The nurse that was assisting Kathy Beatty in the...
This isn't just uncomfortable. It's a potential consent issue. Being undressed while restrained in front of non-medical personnel raises serious ethical and legal red flags. The emotional impact you're hearing now, that's exactly what juries are told not to ignore.
Photography session. She took off my clothes in front of Kathy Beatty, not in the absence of Kathy Beatty. She was most certainly there. She never left the room during this process. But the nurse was the one who assisted with putting the shorts on, removing the Shopkins bra, and putting this white bra on.
And how did you react to that?
It was one of the worst experiences ever. I mean, I'm a very private person, which has been brought up multiple times throughout this trial. And to be held against your will, being forced to take off your clothes in front of these strangers, essentially, it's extremely uncomfortable. I don't think I can convey to you how traumatic that was.
Now, there's some question about who was in the room. If you look at one's up there, 006, there appears to be 2 hands you're holding, and it looks like a person of color there, and both of them, or
Your Honor, respectfully, this is no longer rebuttal. This was gone into detail.
this was an issue on that.
Overruled.
This is the nurse that was helping Kathy Beatty.
Okay. Was there, and let's go back then and compare to the photograph with you having your shirt pulled down. 2604-004. Now there's one, is that your hand there?
So the 2 hands closest to the left are my hands, but then there's a hand on the far right of the picture, which is not my hand.
Okay. And when you, so who was that? Was that the nurse person?
Watch how the case pivots here, from clothing to contact. Whose hand is in the photo? That question sounds small, but legally it's massive. If testimony conflict with photographic evidence, the jury has to decide who they trust.
Well, looking at the hands, it does not appear to be the nurses. To my recollection, this would have been Kathy Beatty, because there's no third person in the room.
You remember there were no third person in the room?
I wouldn't, if, I was there, I don't remember a third person.
Well, all right. Now, you first came in, what did Kathy Beatty do in terms of touching you?
Well, when Kathy Beatty first came in, she came in alone to explain that if I wanted to go and see my mom, and if I wanted to go and see her at court, that the photos would have to be taken.
Your Honor.
All right, and so,
Has been interrupted. This has been gone over in their case in chief.
and this goes to the 3.
This is appropriate rebuttal. Overruled.
And so, she did touch you during that process of the clothes coming off?
It appears so, yes. Even though she has said that it's not her hand, it most certainly isn't the nurse's, and there wasn't a third person, so it has to be her hand.
All right, so, is it because it's the person looks older?
Correct.
But even before this, Kathy Beatty assisted in disrobing you the first time?
Yes.
Now, about having 2 sets of photographs. Let's show you 005. And prior to this, have I shown you these photographs to see if we can figure this out?
Yes.
All right. Now that's you. Is that one of the lesions there?
On my forehead, yes.
All right. To the best of your knowledge, when was this taken in relationship to the other photographs?
This photo, to my best recollection, was after the court hearing. So this is the photo that they're talking about with the second disrobing, but this was not a disrobing. It was just a picture of me in the wheelchair. I would have remembered a second time going through the process of disrobing. The first photos that we saw were from the same disrobing session. This is apparently the second session, but I wasn't stripped.
Do you have any real memory of this?
I don't have much memory of this, but I know that there was a photo taken. Again, I just didn't attach significance to it because I wasn't disrobed.
And whether you were stripped or not the second time?
Correct.
That was affecting you? All right. And in this photograph, although it appears to speak for itself, does this, what are you feeling at that moment?
You could tell I'm not happy. I'm looking down. I'm not smiling. I look uncomfortable, as I was.
Now, when you first arrived over at Johns Hopkins, or within the first week, did there come a time that you were interviewed by a psychologist, Dr. Lewis?
Yes.
In his report, he has a number of statements attributable to you.
This may be one of the most disturbing allegations yet. A psychologist allegedly feeding statements to a vulnerable patient and then documenting them as her own words. If proven, that doesn't just undermine credibility. It shakes the integrity of the entire record. How much weight should those reports really carry?
Have you read that report then?
No, I have not.
Have you been told those statements that came from the report?
Yes.
Did you make those statements?
No, I did not.
And how did that come about then, that there were these specific statements?
I remember this interview with Dr. Lewis very well because I was crying, and by the end of it, I left crying even harder. He would suggest things for me to say, and then he would proceed to write down what he had just stated, even though I did not agree to the statements.
And was that true of all of those statements where you were supposedly describing your life?
Yes.
You did not tell him those things?
Correct. I would not say things like that.
Okay. There has been some testimony about you using cursive language in the days there. Were you on steroids at the time that you came in?
Yes, I was on steroids.
And how much do you really remember of that first 36 to 48 hours?
I don't remember it all too well, if I'm being completely honest.
Okay. And then was there a point where they had you, or that they put a tube through your nose?
Yes.
And so how did that affect you? I'm trying to put that thing down here.
So it's been brought to my attention that, but people have said that Kathy Beatty was the one who explained the situation of my dad having to leave. But that's not true. My dad was the one at my bedside. I woke up and he was crying. I've never seen my dad cry in my entire life, so I knew something bad was going on. That's when he told me that he had to leave. Again, at the time I had a tube down my nose and it has been freshly placed, so that went through my throat. I was crying. I could barely get out a couple of words because of how bad my throat was hurting. So there's no way I would have been able to yell at the medical staff, cursing at them and calling them profanity names.
Do you ever use cursive language to your knowledge?
At that time, I did not.
During the times when you were allowed to talk to your mom, tell the jury whether Miss Beatty was there or left the rooms at any point.
Miss Beatty was always there. She made certain she was the one holding the phone. She made certain she was right next to me on the bed. She had to be there.
And do you remember a single call any call, where Miss Beatty just left a, the Children's Life
There was
contractor, or was Miss Beatty on them regardless?
no, there was no other people assigned to monitor the phone calls with me there in person. It was always Kathy.
So when you were talking and there were other people monitoring, they were either calling in or somehow joining to the call?
Correct.
So was it during these episodes where Ms. Beatty would make facial gestures or comments that were upsetting?
During the unrecorded phone calls, that is when she started to make comments, and again, the facial expressions, as you have mentioned.
Now, the jury has been read an order about your visitation rights and so forth. I just want to tell you, in the last 2 weeks or so, after December 27th, before your mom passed, were you allowed any calls, daily? It's a daily video calls?
No, I didn't even know I had that privilege. It was not told to me.
Your witness.
Mr. Shapiro?
Yeah, very briefly. Hi, Matt.
Hello.
Just so I understand your testimony, you came back from court that evening around 6:30 or 7 p.m.?
I don't know the exact time that I came back, but I know that that photo was after court.
Court ran somewhat later in the evening. Would it sound about right that it was around 6 or 7 at night?
Possibly, yes.
Okay. What, Mr. Reyes, what photo was that you showed? It was
2604.
Yeah, the last one in the wheelchair.
Yours are
5? Can we put up 5? And this is the photo that you contend was taken in the evening when you came back?
I know it was a photo of me in a wheelchair. Am I positively certain that this is the one? No, but I know that it was a photo of me in a wheelchair. It was no disrobing the second time around.
Okay. And at some point in the evening on January 6th?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Anderson, anything further?
Nothing further?
Members of the jury, do any of you have questions? Kowalski. There's a couple of questions. Do you know what happened to the photo after court, and did they take a second set of photos, and did they take clothes off?
So that's why in my previous testimony I said that there was no second set, because the second set would have involved disrobing, but now I know that the second set was just a single photograph of me in the wheelchair and no clothes were removed.
And Mr. Reyes, please pull this up, the 2604-006 photo. Is this the, quote, before, end quote, you went to court?
Yes.
The 2604-004 photo. Is this in the same photo session before court or after court, or when was this taken?
This was the same as the before. So there is two different outfits, but that is because I was changing from my pajamas to my court clothes. But it was all before court.